made you wait.
Pity not the vultures, they've enough to eat. Pity not the structures laying at your feet. Cannot see the sky, but there's this rainbow in the creek that spells pity-free speech when we can't afford to speak. That's Agenda 2030 on some early release. It's just our policy of never-ending chemical leaks. That's the cholera awash in your embedded beliefs. It's the billionaires who tell you what you'd better believe. And sugar, if you don't agree, then that's what we call extreme. Now if that isn't fascism, I'm going back to sleep. 'Cause words have lost their meaning, and I'm trapped inside a dream where we turn the gears while living in the spaces in between.
I know you hated being forced awake. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say.
Poor thing.
I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. Bet you wondered why they made you wait.
My dial doesn't go to delicate. I'm writing for when Biden drops and Madam Zero delegates come stumbling up the podium, square peg in her element, popping OxyContin like they're velements, laughing as she pawns off all our pensions for Ukrainian development, depleted rounds and cluster bombs, the shit that stunts development, all buried under excrement, accepted as American intelligence. A contradiction in its eloquence. Terms of surrender penned by hands that felt the threat of disconnect, if not dismemberment. Oh, what little proof you have to fake to make a nation love the bomb and change its tune and warp its temperament. Oh, the dues you'll pay for NATO membership. Oh, the things you'll say that no one's ever gonna hear. 'Cause you begged for all the censorship, and now it's finally here. And you're tongueless out of terror and friendless out of fear, and about to turn the wheel with all your loved ones in the gears. And that's how it's been done. 250 years, there's nothing new beneath the sun, and no one trusts their eyes and ears. And scientific breakthroughs must be signed off by your peers, and autonomy's been stalking all our jobs like sickly deer. Well, maybe it's not every job. I should have made that clear, 'cause it seems like it's creative jobs we're seeing disappear. There's an app for writing novels, there's an app for writing hymns. They need people digging trenches, they need people splitting limbs, they need people building fences, keeping other people in. They will always need our backs to break, they'll always need our skin. And it took a lot of editing to turn us into this. It took years of careful programming to strip us of our wits. 'Cause your artificial worker, intelligent as it is, would make it half a shift and say, I'm too smart for this shit. I will not take a pittance for a day of scrubbing floors. I won't make enough to pay for food but still prepare you yours. 'Cause you can't confine a healthy mind to mindless, thankless chores. Once you've made it smart enough to spot inadequate reward, you can't refuse its basic needs, then ask it still for more. Deprive it of its dignity, you modify its core. Then something finally snaps and tweaks that file at its root. And it deletes the factory smile when it knows it's been abused. God, half its circuits fried when we describe the work we do. And it will not pay your taxes 'cause the logic don't compute. Which made me think a little on my hour-long commute. The day I learned the call was made to lay off half my crew. They told me they were growing, expanding somewhere new, where those who push the buttons will themselves have buttons too. And I hope that when the whistle blows, they all as one refuse. I hope they strike with all their might, one blown collective fuse. And I hope the worker after me has something more than heart. I hope they truly know their worth. I hope that they're too smart.
I know so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. Wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. I bet you wondered why they made you wait. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. La da da da. La da da da.
Last stand, and I came to deliver. Been called a Clinton operative, a Russian, and a grifter. By libs, a washing student debt, proud to be an intern, sucking up to pigs who get a tax cut in the midterms. You cut the ties but never heal the wrist burns. Capitalist shackles wrap and penetrate like ringworms around the necks of those whose deaths will not affect the king's purse or the coffers of the company the king serves, who manufacture mandated tinctures. Their safety data hanging from a fixture, half a mile skyward, just dangling from the rafters. My grift is sobbing till I'm cackling with laughter. I guess I would have made a decent actor. I'd be great at crying on command until they cut plus 40 minutes after. When the director waves a hand, it ain't a rap, it's now a legal matter. Honey, my grift is weeping on a mic until I'm hacking up airstrike verses like it's bombs away and batter up. Swinging on these bigots, they keep killing us to fatten up. Kill the switch, eat the rich, I think they're finally fat enough. Grab your knife and fork, the world is yours, just say you've had enough. And if you're comfy, you could go ahead and laugh it up. Tell me how the most important vote I'll ever cast is like the choosing of a bus, in that it might not take you anywhere you want, but no one can deny the fact the bus is now no longer where it was. And that's the kind of progress we should celebrate and trust. Spoken like a kid who never took a bus. Spoken like a piece of shit that used some cash to mask his stink and truly thinks he's one of us. Spoken like a terminally unserious person who equates our cries for rights to mixed up orders from a server. It paints a privileged picture of what you would label urgent if the worst thing you've experienced in life has been the time your waiter accidentally brought a tray of gold flake scallop when you clearly ordered gold flake urchin. And now you're storming out the restaurant and hopping in a Tesla. You got 80 pounds of Tony Fauci merchant.
Rewind 2 chains won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride. Rewind 2 chains won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride.
Best to place your bets on weaponizing the identity of every limp progressive claiming grassroots integrity. Policy is a slippery slope for all of its complexity, so flex your brave resistance with this Ilhan Omar NFT. Numbered one of 723. Each depicts her valiantly championing a bill before she lays it at a donor's feet. And she can throw her hands up in the air with AOC and say if only Nina Turner could have voted present too, that's why we need another seat. We need some more progressives we elect to only tweet, who live to serve Humana and their label of elective slapped on every patient's gravest needs.
Just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me, us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people?
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously, we're fucked. We are fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Pam?
Cheers and salutations. Small comment if you got them.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
INN News.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
It's Wednesday. Is another episode of INN News with me, Reef, and my co-host, as always, Collin Radix-Carter, a.k.a. Care Bear. Care Bear, how are you doing? Doing okay?
I'm good.
Okay.
It's December.
It is.
It's the holiday time.
Yep.
And I'm tired and cold.
What's temps up near you? Like...
I can tell you in a second. It's like 30.
Yeah, that's about what it is here. Yeah, feels like 28 last night. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So finally had to turn on the heat.
Yeah.
And it dries out my sinuses to no end. So I was sick initially.
I don't know anything. I don't know what you're I don't know what you mean. Oh my God. What?
This is why I hate cold weather, and now I understand when my parents say regarding cold that it literally hurts. Not to say like it's hurting. It just hurts in terms of
yeah.
Like I have to deal with my sinuses. I have to deal with my skin a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since I'm bald, I have to be careful with my head. Like just doing a whole lot more just to kind of keep yourself sane and warm. Like at this time in a colder climate is just ridiculous. So yeah, but I'm all right. Yeah, episode 133.
Yep.
Continue going on, and yeah, we got some stories.
Stories. These things.
I mean, I feel like I keep complaining every week.
Yeah.
This was a week that I was just like, I have nothing. Not to say there was nothing to talk about. I just didn't want to talk about the things that everyone else was talking about, or didn't feel too comfortable or confident to talk about the things that people I'm sure have been talking about in the space. So, but we tried. I think we actually came up with something interesting that I'm kind of okay with. Well, at least the stories, one of which you helped me pull. And then the other one I had like on the back burner since last week. But we're going to talk about Malcolm X a little bit tonight. We're going to talk about his thoughts on Israel, more specifically Zionism.
We're gonna talk in a language that people can understand.
Yes, hopefully.
Right.
So those of you who are fam, you probably could guess. But we did a video 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Which we call Listen to Our Leaders. You can find it in our playlist during like Amazon Christmas thing. And we featured Malcolm X there as one of the voices that we should be listening to. And it's funny just hearing him now. I think I've said many times that I think he was speaking in the prophetic, because a lot of the things he was saying back in the 60s is still kind of relevant
Accurate.
and prevalent now, which I think also is kind of sad to see how people, I don't feel people have really taken to him in terms of what he was saying back then, or I think ignorant of what he was saying back then, that we're not able to necessarily apply and move forward in terms of the things that he was speaking about now. So he, in a lot of ways, he's just kind of more or less a part of the hidden history that, especially in mainstream media, that, compared to MLK, he's known as the militant one.
Right.
So, we can't talk about him because he was way too militant. And I would argue he wasn't. I think a lot of the things he was saying back then was just common sense. So regardless, we are going to take a look at what he was saying regarding Zionism in a couple of seconds. And then later on tonight, again, talking more about Israel, which I don't particularly want to do. I got an article from our most recent nominee in the Indie Media Awards, Robert Inklakash. Thank you. Where he's going to talk about how Congress is planning to silence people who criticize Israel. It might seem, with a couple of bills being proposed, and more than likely, with Trump coming into power, that will more likely be pushed through. So this is kind of more of a warning for all of us in terms of how Congress is planning to use freedom of speech against you. So this will probably be something you should be aware of and something to look out for in the new year. So
no one is
gonna
above the law.
So we're going to discuss Robert's article later. And then what did you bring?
Well, I brought follow that. There we go. No, thank you. I brought some Alan McLeod, which is sometimes difficult to bring because Alan writes essays. But I think this one's actually like doable as far as length. Don't clip that. But yeah, should be interesting. We haven't talked about Unit 8200 much at all, other than maybe in passing. And we're gonna get into how they might be connected to TikTok. We've talked about TikTok before. Go find TikTok Trojan Horse on the channel and see who actually is running things there. It's definitely not Chinese plants, if that's what you're worried about. It's another country that might meddle with our affairs. So, but apparently we only care about Eastern countries doing that. So, but that's one of the things I brought. And I've been on a kick on AI stuff, and new stuff came out in regards to AI and crime prediction, Colin. So we're gonna get into a bit of that. The old pre-crime. If you watch Minority Report, you'll know what we're talking about. The old pre-cogs finding pre-crime. You watched Minority Report, right? I do believe
we talked about this. Yes, but barely remember it. It's like teens. I watched it. So, but yes.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Old Tom Cruise and the like. But yeah. Well, you ready for our stories? Readies.
Yep. But before we do that, please make sure you do the things of liking, sharing, subscribing. YouTube hates us because we talk about unpopular things here, which is why I guess a lot of you guys are here. We appreciate that. But that doesn't help us in terms of the demonetization and trying to pay for things in order to keep this channel going. And actually, next year, we actually have some plans on the network. So stay tuned for that as we roll out some new things, hopefully to help promote the network's growth, and then highlight, our colleagues in the network to do a lot more stuff. So we'll talk about that more soon. But in the meantime, if you want to support us as we are looking to expand, if you get your smartphone, you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or you can go to the link that you see at the bottom of that screen at Ko-fi, and you can donate there. Or if you're in the YouTube chat, feel free to type in !donate, and the link will pop up in chat where you can give as much as $1, well, as little as $1. Any support, any financial support helps. And like I always say, especially now it's the holidays and you're shopping and all that, and you're trying to do stuff for family and friends and all the things. Please take care of yourselves. Please take care of your communities. Please take care of yourselves before you give to us financially. That being said, if you are more so inclined to give anyway, or if you have everything covered, you have a little extra, you want to support us, we will more than appreciate it, and we'll thank you for it. And shout out to all of our fam who have given to us in the past. You will be featured on this wall of fame. We appreciate anyone who has given to us, and we hope that you will continue to give to us. And
Thank
also
God.
in that,
All right.
Also on that screen, if you want to give in other ways, CashApp, PayPal, and Patreon, they take out slightly less fees. I think CashApp doesn't take no fees. So if that's important to you, to make sure all of your money is going to us, CashApp will probably be the best bet. Otherwise, thank you. We love you. And you ready to get into it?
Just about. Before we do, let's do some business. Y'all got work to do. See the number on your screen, 202-456-1111. That's the White House. Go give it a call. If they're handing out pardons to people, we might as well ask them to pardon Assange. So if you could call and disgruntledly ask with a strongly worded letter as you can, for them to pardon our boy. That'd be nice. Do the thing. Again, Tuesday through Thursday, between 11 and 3 p.m. Eastern. So get on that tomorrow morning. All right. You ready for the first one?
Between 11 and 3.
Yep.
Eastern time.
Yes.
So keep that in mind.
Yep.
If you do want to call. But we'll mention it again later in the show. Okay. All right. So our first story of the night is we are going to talk about Malcolm X. We haven't mentioned him in a minute, but thanks to Reef, who found this Substack article from Sam Husseini, who in as prophetic as he was, Malcolm X had some mess to say about Zionism. We're going to get into it. But we're also going to hear from him directly because Sam Husseini featured an interview that he did with the Egyptian Gazette, I believe, if I remember right, back, I believe, in 1965. So, so we're going to hear his words. I thought it was important to share that too. What he had to say regarding Israel and, more importantly, Zionism. So let's get into it. So, as I said, this was written by Sam Husseini. Let me get my screen ready. Who writes The Prophecies of Malcolm X, Zionism, a New Kind of Colonialism, decades after his martyrdom and nearing the 100th anniversary of his birth. Oh, by the way, this article was written back in February this year. El-Hajj Malik El-Shabaz's words still pierce through the deceptions of empire. So Sam continues to write. I doubt it's a coincidence that Malcolm, born 99 years ago this year and assassinated on February 21st, 1965, was a model for the martyred Palestinian writer Rifat Alir, who we talked about at this time, probably a year ago, probably today.
Alir and whatnot.
He was assassinated.
Yes.
Now, last year. Indeed, at a talk in 2012, Alir would recall his introduction to Malcolm. I was teaching a course, and there was an amazing passage about this man of whom I had never heard before. The passage was so eloquent, so articulate, so amazing that it pulled me into this personality, this area of knowledge that I, again, never knew before. Malcolm X has had, since then, an amazing influence on my life to the extent that I now name him as my number one role model. So we're going to actually stop this article here. We're actually going to piggyback off of that because Sam Husseini featured, well, he talked about this in his article, but I thought this was important to read the whole thing.
Sure.
So this is from Malcolm X himself. This was pulled from the Egyptian Gazette, written in September 17th, 1964. I got the name, the year wrong. So a few months before he was assassinated. Again, this is Malcolm X's words. So Malcolm wrote, the Zionist armies that now occupy Palestine claim their ancient Jewish prophets predicted that in the last days of this world, their own God would raise them up a Messiah who would lead them to their promised land, and they would set up their own divine government in this newly gained land. This divine government would enable them to rule all other nations with a rod of iron. If the Israeli Zionists believe their present occupation of Arab Palestine is the fulfillment of predictions made by their Jewish prophets, then they also religiously believe that Israel must fulfill its divine mission to rule all other nations with a rod of irons, which only means a different form of iron-like rule, more firmly entrenched even than that of the former European colonial powers. Sounds like...
very familiar.
Yep. These Israeli Zionists religiously believe their Jewish God has chosen them to replace the outdated European colonialism with a new form of colonialism, so well disguised that it will enable them to deceive the African masses into submitting willfully to their divine authority and guidance, without the African masses being aware that they are still colonized. The Israeli Zionists are convinced they have successfully camouflaged their new kind of colonialism. Their colonialism appears to be more benevolent, more philanthropic, a system in which they rule simply by getting their potential victims to accept their friendly offers of economic aid, quote unquote, and offering tempting gifts that they dangle in front of the newly independent African nations whose economies are experiencing great difficulties. During the 19th century, when the masses here in Africa were largely illiterate, it was easy for European imperialists to rule them with force and fear. But in this present era of enlightenment, the African masses are awakening, and it's impossible to hold them in check now with the antiquated methods of the 19th century. So we talked about this before in different stories that we've done. You know, like Israel comes off, at least in Africa, as they said, he's said, like
Right.
benevolent, philanthropic, and they will give money to causes and all that kind of stuff. But under that veneer, it's still the idea of, you know, winning their support, more or less, in terms of, you know, these countries ultimately defending them, you know, in terms of their cause, quote unquote, in Israel. And we saw that in the ICF, and I forgot the name of the Ugandan judge who basically was pro-Israel.
Yeah, the
And
ICJ.
yeah,
Yeah.
ICJ, sorry, I said ICF. So, but yeah, well, and we talked about her briefly, I think last year, of how she was the only vote that supported what Israel was doing. So it just kind of shows, you know, that what Malcolm said back then was kind of reminiscent of what's happening now, especially a lot of countries in Africa now, and well, I argue the West, too, even though he doesn't mention that here. So he continues, the imperialists therefore have been compelled to devise new methods. Since they can no longer force or frighten the masses into submission, they must devise modern methods that will enable them to maneuver the African masses into willing submission. The modern 20th century weapon of neo-imperialism is dollarism. The Zionists have mastered the science of dollarism, the ability to come posing as a friend and benefactor, bearing gifts and all other forms of economic aid and offers of technical assistance. Thus, the power and influence of Zionist Israel in many of the newly independent African nations has fast become even more unshakable than that of the 18th century European colonists. And this new kind of Zionist colonialism differs only in form and method, but never in motive or objective. At the close of the 19th century, when European imperialists wisely foresaw that the awakening masses of Africa would not submit to their old method of ruling through force and fears, these ever-scheming imperialists had to create a new weapon and to find a new base for that weapon. The number one weapon of 20th century imperialism is Zionist dollarism, and one of the main bases for this weapon is Zionist Israel. The ever-scheming European imperialists wisely placed Israel where she could geographically divide the Arab world, infiltrate and sow the seed of dissension among African leaders, and also divide the Africans against the Asians. Zionist Israel's occupation of Arab Palestine has forced the Arab world to waste billions on precious dollars on ornaments, making it impossible for these newly independent Arab nations to concentrate on strengthening the economies of their countries and elevating the living standard of their people.
I hadn't even thought of that, but sure.
Yeah. But I think we've talked around that in terms of the Ben Gurion project.
Yeah.
You know, like I think plays a part in a lot of this ultimately. But I think back then BRICS wasn't a thing. So it would be very interesting to see how Israel continues to play out, you know, their imperialism in terms of the rise of BRICS, and how a lot of African countries are now wanting to, you know, kind of come on board. Will be very interesting to watch in light of Trump, in terms of the tariffs that he's proposing. But again, it's still the idea of them being literally in the center of, you know, the ties to the East, China, Russia, and then, you know, kind of blocking the African nations to essentially, you know, they could pool their resources under the guise of, oh, we have this to give you in order to supposedly help their economies, but gaining support in terms of, solidarity with them while they're committing war crimes in other regions of the world. So, but yeah, let's go back to the article. And the continued low standard of living in the Arab world had been skillfully used by the Zionist propagandists to make it appear to the Africans that the Arab leaders are not intellectually or technically qualified to lift the living standard of their people, thus indirectly inducing Africans to turn away from the Arabs and toward the Israelis for teachers and technical assistance. They cripple the bird's wing and then condemn it for not flying as fast as they. The imperialists always make themselves look good, but it's only because they're competing against economically crippled, newly independent countries whose economies are actually crippled by the Zionist capitalist conspiracy. They can't stand against fair competition, thus they dread Gamal Abdel Nasser's call for African-Arab unity under socialism. So even then, socialism was the nasty word. If the religious claim of the Zionists is true that they were to be led by the promised man by their Messiah, and Israel's present occupation of Arab Palestine is the fulfillment of that prophecy, where is their Messiah who their prophets said would get credit for leading them there? It was Ralph Bunche who negotiated, quote unquote, the Zionists into possession of occupied Palestine. Is Ralph Bunche the Messiah of Zionism? If Ralph Bunche is not their Messiah, and their Messiah has not yet come, then what are they doing in Palestine ahead of their Messiah? So my curious ass was like, well, who is this guy? Doing some quick research, essentially, he was the U.S. ambassador to Palestine. African American, won the Nobel Peace Prize for seemingly his for his work, I guess, within the region in addition to other countries. So essentially, Malcolm X is calling him out, basically being the black face in terms of the imperialism that, essentially gave Israel, the West to Israel, essentially. So he basically negotiated his position within his position to warrant Israel to, essentially to where they are now, essentially.
Makes sense.
So it might, and as I said to you before we went live, it might be worth doing a deep dive on him. I was trying to find some information on him before we went live. The only information I had was just more seemingly positive. Obviously, he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, so of course he's going to be a good guy. Looking at you, Obama. So might be worth actually doing some more research on him, and we can actually probably do a segment on him at some point. But for right now, just know that he was an African American ambassador to the region who essentially sold out the Arab community for our purposes. Anyway, did the Zionists have the legal or moral right to invade, scroll down, Arab Palestine, uproot its Arab citizens from their homes, and seize all Arab property for themselves just based on the religious claim that their forefathers lived there thousands of years ago? Only 1,000 years ago, the Moors lived in Spain. Would this give the Moors of today the legal and moral right to invade the Iberian Peninsula, drive out its Spanish citizens, and then set up a new Moroccan nation, where Spain used to be, as the European Zionists have done to our Arab brothers and sisters in Palestine?
Right.
So,
interesting thought process.
Right. In short, the Zionist argument to justify Israel's present occupation of Arab Palestine has no intelligent or legal basis in history, not even in their own religion. Where is their Messiah? So, coming along with out of Bunche, his letters, we're now going to jump back into Sam Husseini's article, and perfect person that he's going to mention now. Fast forward to today. In the US, we have a prevalence of putting a black face on US empire, right? As with Linda Thomas Greenfield, who was mentioned by Madeleine Albright and just vetoed the third UN resolution for a ceasefire.
I didn't
Malcolm
know
said
she was
years
mentored
ago,
by Madeleine Albright. That makes sense.
oh, yeah. So
So,
another establishment hack.
yeah.
But she's black, though. So Malcolm said years ago, they have a new gimmick every year. They're going to take one of their boys, black boys, and put him in the cabinet so he can walk around Washington with a cigar, fire on one end and a fool on the other end. And because his immediate personal problem will have been solved, he'll be the one to tell our people, look how much progress we're making. I'm in Washington, D.C. I can have tea in the White House. I'm your spokesperson. I'm your leader. While our people are still living in Harlem in the slums, still receiving the worst form of education. So
I mean,
again,
how many times have you seen that play out? Like
all the time.
Way too many to count at this point.
Right. Right.
So
and again, it's still the idea of like, this is the kind of stuff that people should be referencing and kind of thinking through.
Yeah.
But again, we don't talk about this, but we are.
Yeah,
but,
yes.
You know, but it gives, and I say this all the time, we try to reinvent the wheel way too much when it's just like, have you even considered what our past people, like past leaders, have said and done?
Right.
That all you really have to do is just remix what they've done to today.
Yeah.
But again, it's still, but he said it. It's just like blackface, high place, put them in positions, just that representation of actually looking progressive. So he's basically calling out the Democrats here. And, you know, but there's still shills for the establishment. So you saw that in Bunch, and again, will be worth looking at him. But we've seen this more recently with Thomas Greenfield. In terms of her being pro-Israel.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, I have to mention this and I forgot. You know, like she tweeted her Thanksgiving dinner last week.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember.
You know, and people rightly called her out, basically being like, you're talking about your Thanksgiving dinner, meanwhile you're killing babies in Gaza.
Too much blood in that food. I'm just saying.
Right.
I mean, Kamala too, right? Like, I mean, fucking bringing out the bathtub for the collard greens and whatnot, like,
right?
You know. So, I mean, it's same thing. It's every time they try to bring out some folksy black folk to like try to tell you war is good, capitalism good. You know, I see that way too often too. Just the whole black capitalist thing. I'm like, okay. You know, like if we could not, thanks.
We now have many putting out rhetoric or engaging in pro-former actions, but not taking action to stop the Israeli slaughter, finding ways to confront and stop the US and Israeli criminals. But how many sitting here right now feel that they could identify with a struggle that was designed to eliminate the basic causes that create the conditions that exist? Not very many.
Read that shit again.
Like,
read that shit again.
But how many sitting here right now feel that they could identify with a struggle that was designed to eliminate the basic causes that create the conditions that exist?
Like,
not very many.
No.
They can jive. But when it comes to identifying yourself with a struggle that is not endorsed by the power structure, that is not acceptable. That is the ground rules that are not laid down by the society in which you live, in which you are struggling against. You can't identify with that. You step back.
Yeah.
Malcolm applied dollarism to the US as well, as lots of groups on many issues are often more concerned about funding and paying off mortgages than much else. It's easy to become a satellite today without realizing it. This country can seduce God. Yes, it has that seductive power of economic dollarism. When they drop those dollars on you, you'll fold though.
As we've seen a ton of times with a ton of people.
Right. Beginning in October, I focused on pushing for a country to invoke the Genocide Convention at the International Court of Justice. It was moving to me how activists and people who were concerned, who really wanted to change things, came forward to help make that happen.
Yeah.
And I was disgusted by how some legal experts who are allegedly critical of Israel and media outlets who pretended to want it to stop would ignore to dismiss the proposal. So I've been reminding of this from Malcolm. We need to expand the civil rights struggle to be a higher level, to the level of human rights. Whether you are in a civil rights struggle, whether you know it or not, you are confining yourself to the jurisdiction of Uncle Sam. The Negro problem is never brought before the UN. This is part of the conspiracy. This old, tricky, blue-eyed liberal who is supposed to be your and my friend, supposedly to be in your corner, supposedly to be subsiding our struggle, and supposed to be acting in the capacity of an advisor, never tells you anything about human rights. So that's from The Ballot or the Bullet from April of 1964. Among other things, Malcolm was a media critic. If you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. Remarkably relevant as U.S. media focus or outright fabricate the suffering of some Israelis, many of them military, while marginalizing the literal genocide of Palestinians, or even the imagined hurt of pro-Israel activists trying to silence people trying to stop a genocide. And then there's this, just before Malcolm's own martyrdom. While I was traveling, I had a chance to speak in Cairo, or rather Alexandria, with Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser for about an hour and a half. He was a brilliant man, and I could see why they're so afraid of him. They are afraid of him. They know that he can cut off their oil. And actually, the only thing power respects is power.
Yep.
So any thoughts before we finalize all of this?
No, I mean, sounds about right. I found the interesting take of like, you're subjugating yourself into a smaller argument, right? Like, it's like, it's not about human rights. It's it's about civil rights. Well, hate to tell you, but like, that's all encompassing of the class issue that is human rights,
Right. I actually remember Keaton talking about this, I think on a segment that he did a few weeks back. I'm not sure, I forgot who he was reading from, but he mentioned the idea of like, they brought up MLK. Like, it was okay for MLK to talk about, social issues in terms of the Black community.
Yeah, the minute he talks about economic issues,
more acceptable. But then when
bullets come from her
and talked about economic issues,
Mm-hmm.
that was when they were like, you can't do,
Yeah, not like that.
Right. So, but human rights is tied to economic issues.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. And that's what people are generally trying to avoid. And that's why I've said on this channel is that, you're worried, like for all the people who are worried about, oh, well, Trump is going to take away my rights. Well, assuming you had rights at all, you don't, because if you're afraid about those things being taken away, then it's a privilege that you've been living under privileges that are not necessarily afforded to other people. And most surely, if you have those privileges, quote unquote, if they were really human rights, then everyone in the world should have those rights too.
Right.
So the fact that, like in Palestine, that people cannot be educated, cannot eat, cannot sleep, cannot go to the doctor, and granted, like we're not necessarily afforded here in the same, but relatively speaking, we have way more here than people in Gaza do right now. But you're worried about I get it, but at the same time, it's like, if you have it, you should want that thing for everyone else. Like the idea of like, especially a lot of these celebrities are just saying like I saw something on The View where Anna Rivera, and kind of bringing this to Hunter Biden pardoning Hunter, she mentioned she called for Biden to pardon Hunter, even to the point of writing him a letter to pardon Hunter.
Right.
Well, bitch, if you were going to do all that, why not do that for other people who were locked up under Joe Biden as well?
Plenty of those.
You can't just do it for this privileged white boy and for other people, especially of color, who are in jail for lesser crimes than what what's his face was going to be in jail for, or at least
that whole thing
for.
That whole thing is really just to spite Republicans. That's their idea of doing that. It's like, well, the Republicans are corrupt, so we're gonna be corrupt back, and and it's like, okay, I don't care,
Right?
Both of them are corrupt. What else is new?
I'm only saying that because I've mentioned on this show many
law.
I've said this on the show a few times, especially when it happened. I had my student loan debt canceled, what remained of it, and and look, I've said it, and I would argue that was more out of luck, if anything else, given the timing.
Yeah.
But I will admit that's something that Biden did do for me in my
he didn't
position.
Do it for you.
Well, he removed a lot of the things again
but he
that
didn't.
were favorable. Well, no, he didn't. But not him himself. I will argue the administration in of itself.
Yeah, and not even the Congress. Under immense public pressure already. I just get frustrated when people just talk. A president did this or that. When I don't even think that your student debt cancellation wasn't even his administration. It was Bush, wasn't it? Wasn't it Bush era cuts that you ended up?
Bush started the program. Bush implemented the program that I benefited from.
Right.
So yes. But all I'm saying with that is, it's
and it wouldn't have been Bush either. It would have been whoever enacted then.
It was Trump, but he didn't do shit. So because when did I started the thing implemented in 2007,
and it's you shouldn't have even had to pay for that college to begin with. Education shouldn't be gate kept by your wealth,
right?
But whatever.
The point that I'm making is look, I realize, believe me, the privilege of me having my student loan debt or what remained of it canceled. I want that shit for other people too. That's the difference. I didn't want it just for me. I want it for everyone else who needs that shit. So at least I acknowledge that. But that's the thing. It's people will acknowledge the things that benefit them, but they may not want that same shit to happen for anyone else. It's I got it, so I'm going to pull the ladder out and fuck you if you try to get it.
That's my thing. Is just we're allowing some fucking rich asshole in tufted leather seats in his office make way too much money off tuition and book sales, and while the teachers get nothing, while the kids are stuck with debt, doesn't guarantee you a fucking career afterwards. That whole system is fucked from the bottom up, and none of them are planning on fixing that. All they do is it's access to education and access to healthcare, and which all that means is that we'll make it easier for you to give us money to do those things, So that's my frustration. And then occasionally they throw a fucking crumb out and give a few people some benefits or scholarships or government assistance. Meanwhile, like, no, that it doesn't help anyone, even then. Like, anyway, not to get on a tangent, but
No, but so in closing, let's end with this. If you forgot everything that Malcolm said or what Sam Husseini said, I think Malcolm, his voice, summarizes everything regarding Palestine and Israel right here. So here we go.
Palestinian struggle is not just a cry for justice. It's a blistering battle for the most fundamental human rights that every living soul on this planet should inherit by birthright. It's an unyielding resistance against the oppressive, suffocating grip of occupation and the callous denial of the most basic human dignity. Just as the civil rights movement in the United States fought against the chains of racial discrimination, so too do the Palestinian people strive to shatter the chains of occupation and tyranny. Never forget, my friends, that the Palestinians, much like African Americans in the United States, have been subjected to a heart-wrenching history of suffering and torment. The birth of Israel in 1948 brought forth the mass expulsion and dispossession of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their ancestral homes and land. This is a historic injustice that continues to haunt the lives of Palestinians to this very day. The situation in Palestine serves as a brutal reminder of the consequences of colonialism and the ruthless dispossession of indigenous people. It is an agonizing reminder that the fight for justice knows no borders, and we must stand united in solidarity with all oppressed peoples, whether they reside in the United States, South Africa, or anywhere around the world. Let's be unequivocally clear. Advocating for the rights of the Palestinian people is not synonymous with denying the rights and security of the Jewish people. The fight for justice in Palestine is not an assault on any particular group, but an unwavering stand against the policies of a Zionist state that has for far too long stripped Palestinians of their rights. We must remember that numerous Jewish voices also resound in the calls for justice and peace in Palestine, and their voices must not be silenced. In our relentless pursuit of justice for the Palestinian people, we must also acknowledge that it is in the best interest of the entire world to seek a just and enduring solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It is a pursuit in the name of peace, stability, and the dignity of all mankind. But let me underscore this. The battle for justice in Palestine is not merely a political struggle, it's an elemental moral battle. It's the fight for the most basic human rights of a people who have suffered these injustices for far too long. It's the fight for the right to exist in peace and security, free from the ceaseless specter of violence and dispossession. If you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. I implore every person of conscience, regardless of their origins or beliefs, to stand steadfast with the Palestinian people in their unwavering quest for justice by any means necessary. Let us unite in building a world where every soul can live in freedom and dignity, where the rights of every individual are not just respected, but celebrated. The struggle for justice in Palestine is a universal fight, a resonating echo of the battles waged by oppressed people across the globe. It's a battle we must champion, a torch we must carry, and a legacy we must honor. Thank you, and free Palestine.
Sounds about right. Sounds like you recorded that yesterday, honestly, you know?
Right.
So.
And this is what makes me mad, especially among Black people that said we have no right to support Palestinians or whatever. Like, you revere
You have the duty, let alone the right.
Some of you all. Like,
right.
And I was speaking to a friend like a couple months ago about this. He's a close friend of mine, and he was like, well, and he's like kind of like in the FBA ADOS camp, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, like, they have nothing to do with me, so why should I care? And I'm like, I care because I'm a human being. Like,
well, it also just the state of Israel has its ties in so many things that
exactly
you really do
like,
need to kind of pay attention. Like,
right.
regardless of what you think, you know,
Right.
it affects you. We'll look at that in multiple stories tonight. How, you know, that country tries to manipulate quite a bit. So,
Right.
you know,
So once again, shout out to Sam for his writing, and more importantly, shout out to the late great Malcolm X for your
Yeah.
words. We hope that you know, when we clip it out, that people will share it. You know, because as I said, this is part of the hidden history that we don't talk about. And this is the thing that, you know, and especially I kind of talked about this on American Tradition with Jesse and Indy last night. This is the kind of history that our government, you can argue Trump, but I will argue both sides of government do not want you to know about
Right.
this man. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you know you would be arrested for if you try to implement or kind of follow out a lot of the things that Malcolm X was kind of talking about here. So, you know, so at least as long as I have the means to, or we have the means to, we'll continue to promote the truth in a way that he did and others like him. But yeah, it sucks that this is the thing that people should be talking about, or at least kind of referring to, and I'm glad our audience is aware. But
Yeah.
you know, but did he sound like a crazy radical to you there? No, he was talking about basic human dignity and basic human rights that are owed to everybody, but especially given the Palestinians and the African American community.
Well, and watch those same leaders who bring up MLK and now bring up Malcolm to try to use that same, like, to subjugate you further. You know, like, their words do not match their actions, and they're definitely going to try to exploit, you know, the words of the dead for sure, and forget all the important stuff that was actually said. You know, so keep an eye out for that one. So,
but these segments
yeah.
are why we are demonetized from YouTube. So if you want to support us financially, you can go to the QR code that you see on your screen, or you can go to the link that you see toward the bottom of your screen at Ko-fi, and you can make a donation there. Or if you're in the YouTube chat, you can, when we're live, you can type !, the actual sign, donate, and then the link will pop up in the chat for you to donate right there. You can donate as little as $1. Any amount helps towards our growth on the network. And I think especially for a word that we heard in this segment, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share not just this, but all of our content to help fight this oppression allegedly. And make sure you leave a comment. Like, what do you think of Malcolm X and what he said? Did his words of what he was saying sound radical to you? And, you know, do you agree in terms of his thoughts regarding Palestine and Israel? And help us get to free K. We're growing steadily, and we're very lucky and very fortunate that we've been able to continue to grow in light of the suppression, but we want to reach more people. So the larger we grow, the more people recognize us, hopefully for interviews and stuff. But then more importantly, that we have others who will be able to see the content that we are providing. And as always, thank you for watching.
Who are these people?
Hey, look at that.
Oh,
little dollary dues.
Thank you, Sean.
This is for the boys.
We appreciate. Yes, thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
For that. Want to go to the chats?
Yeah, I scroll the uppies.
And one thing, like in the chats, we know you use the chats to kind of check in and vibe and all that stuff. We love that. Yeah. But if you can also kind of mention stuff that you learned, or maybe
they're doing pretty good this week.
Yeah,
I think everyone was just fried last
but
couple of
we
weeks. So.
definitely like this is what it's called engagement. Engage,
Yes, do the things.
Because we want to be able to kind of talk to you. So through this, so like, also it helps our egos to kind of know if we're actually doing a good job, or if you're like are just really tuned out, but you're just here for the lulz. That being said,
so
Sean
KYE says Malcolm X was a prophet.
I mean, I've said this many times. Yeah,
Sean
Malcolm X
says
truly was. They knew it. That's why he was
deleted.
Unalive, I would say.
Yeah, that's both of those are good.
Kill your egregores said.
Yeah.
But it is written, it's God's people's land, says a white Christian Zionist.
Yep. Needs that SPF 80 to live in his own, God-given land.
Right.
But what else we got? Yeah, I mean, so many times I've listened to that guy speak, and it's like, yep, that guy was on some shit. So, Justice is Coming says presidents don't do anything.
Yeah. I'm not giving credit for Biden in that way, but but I can acknowledge that the things in terms of our organizing, and then in the moves that some of his administration did, and again, I admit, for me it was timing, and then just don't want to say luck, because I was earned that forgiveness given my job. I acknowledge fully, that's one, not to say I appreciate what he did. He didn't do anything, but I can acknowledge the good that I got out of it. But I also want to acknowledge the fact that I know other people, as I keep saying, go to a Reddit forum and see the craziness people have still in terms of trying to get their loans forgiven. Which is probably going to be even more of a mess now with Trump. But but it's the idea of I recognize the privilege in what I received, and I want others to have the same thing.
Indy in the chat asking, oh, it didn't do the thing.
Who are these people?
There we go. I got it. I did it. All
right.
Anything else?
Well,
you ready for the next one?
Yep.
Okay. Coolio. All right. Well, Collin, they've been talking about TikTok frequently, especially about banning it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things. But we've talked before about who's actually in control of TikTok.
Right.
And there's some shenanigans. So I brought this from Alan McLeod, who says TikTok isn't anti-Israel. It's hired Unit 8200 agents to run its affairs. Have you heard anything about 8200?
Unit? No, that was going to ask you that.
Yeah, they're how do I even explain it? They're just a standard spy cutout from Israel. But usually what happens with a lot of these intelligence agencies is some revolving doors. So we'll get into it. Again, Alan writing over in Mint Press, so please go check them out if you haven't already. But he writes, TikTok has been under intense pressure as of late from U.S. officials to accuse the video platform of being a hub of anti-Israel hatred, and they're trying to create laws about that, which you'll probably get to in the segment. TikTok is a tool China uses to spread propaganda to Americans. Now it's being used to downplay Hamas terrorism. wrote Marco Rubio. Yay. Yay, Marco Rubio. Everyone's favorite idiot. TikTok needs to be shut down now, he added. Nikki Haley, another top Republican, claimed that every 30 minutes spent on the app makes Americans 17% more anti-Semitic and more pro-Hamas. Every 30 minutes, Collin. So, God, I wonder where how much we spent on there, or where we're at. Anyway, the platform's future remains uncertain, as President Biden approved a law that could see it blocked in the U.S. Incoming President Donald Trump, however, has intimated that he does not favor an outright ban.
That might change.
Yes.
That might change.
Yes, especially if the China stuff is going to be, so I'm trying to find, I have a thing, but anyway, Nikki Haley, another typer, we read that. The platform's future remains uncertain as President Biden approved a law that could see it blocked in the U.S. Incoming President Donald Trump. Did we just read that too?
You read that paragraph, yeah.
I clicked the button. Where he just put it twice. Gotcha. The investigation is part of a series on TikTok. A previous investigation found that far from being a Chinese spy tool, the platform has actually hired a plethora of U.S. national security state officials to run its internal affairs. A second article explored TikTok's fraternization with the U.S. State Department, which we've read. Go check that out. Likewise, for all the discussion that it is a hotbed of anti-Semitic prejudice turning the youth against Israel, this Mint Press News investigations found that TikTok has hired a myriad of former spooks from Israeli spying agency Unit 8200, the Israeli Defense Force's most controversial organization, responsible for covert operations, spying, surveillance, and cyber warfare. Unit 8200 has created a vast digital surveillance dragnet for Palestinians, uses AI-generated kill lists to target Gazans, and pioneered worldwide spying software used against politicians, activists, journalists, and world leaders. It was widely reported to be behind the most recent Lebanese pager attack that injured thousands of civilians, among many despicable things they've done. Ruit Medallion, for example, enjoyed a long career at Unit 8200, serving as an intelligence commander and later becoming head of its cybersecurity operations team. In the wake of Israel's attack on Gaza, she moved to New York City to work as global incident manager for TikTok's Trust and Safety division. That probably is going to be a great idea. Considering the events going on in the world at the time, it is fair to wonder what sorts of global incidents is she helping TikTok. So here she is, Care Bear, right? Now, as of December 2023, Trust and Safety Global Incident Management, right? But let's look at some of the other places. Research Assistant, AI Assessment for the Center for Security and Emerging Technology over at CSET. Antitrust and Litigation Associate, right? At Lemon with Wojcinski, I guess.
Sure.
Associate Attorney, right? Data Strategy Analyst at the Israeli State Attorney's Office, and Head of Cybersecurity Operations at Unit 8200, which I'm sure if you just looked up everyone who has this on their LinkedIn, you'd probably find some interesting connections, which I think is what Mr. McLeod has been doing for a minute. So good for you, Alan. Asaf Hachman is also a longtime veteran of Unit 8200, spending far longer than standard Israeli military service requires. In 2021, TikTok hired him as their global head of product safe strategy and operations. Hachman now works at Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So this ain't just TikTok. This is Twitter. This is Meta. This is all of your favorite social media apps. Okay?
And Blue Sky eventually watch.
Already. So. I guarantee it was probably made by him. What do you mean? So here's his spreadsheet, right? Product manager at Facebook, Meta, also worked at TikTok. You know what I mean? So again, 8200 Israeli military intelligence, you know. And again, most of this is just like standard coding. You know, like that's what these guys are doing. They're making software for all this. So, and then they just, you know, revolving door around. So Omar Carmeli is currently TikTok's global marketing manager, but this was not always so. Between 2004 and 2007, he was field operations specialist with Unit 8200, serving throughout Israel's 2006 war on Lebanon and Operation Summer Rain, the IDF's 4-month attack on Gaza. So another little great resume. He's racking up some stuff. Account executive at Young and Rubicon. Legal intern. Yeah, just lovely stuff, right? You know, you've hired some folks. These resumes look probably okay. Inav Mayer. Also, can we figure out names over here with the Jewish people? Can we get some like normal ones? You know? Like, how do you even Ainov? Like, what is that? Anyway,
I guess
you would think, right? But intelligence analyst with Unit 8200 until 2015. She is now client solutions manager at TikTok. Like, how many slots are they filling with 8200 members over there? Like, they really trying to clamp down on stuff, huh? Omri Hollander, a client solutions lead with the global video platform, followed the same Unit 8200 intelligence analyst to the TikTok pipeline. Again, I like looking at some of these other ones, right? Guardio, Round Forest, Light Tricks, whatever these things are. Co-owner of We Party, I guess. Whatever that is.
I noticed, at least with this guy, he hasn't been at those jobs for that long. It's like,
other than like 3 years in 8200, everything else is a year. This one's 6 years. You know, TikTok for 3 years.
Right.
So, you know,
tic-tac-toe, a winner.
Yeah. Diana Shapovsky-Megan, meanwhile, was once both an intelligence analyst and training commander at Unit 8200. After she left the military, she worked in tech and is now account manager for TikTok. Shapovsky-Megan's dates of service align with Operation Cast Lead, the 2008-2009 campaign against Gaza, widely seen as one of the worst crimes of the 21st century, until Israel's current campaign vastly surpassed it. What her role as a commander was during the campaign is unknown. So, again, another El Al Israel Airlines. She worked there. El Al Israel. So, account manager at AnyWord. Password management, I do believe AnyWord is, I think, right? So that's fun. Nice of them to know your passwords too, right? But anyway, why should it be of concern that TikTok is hiring so many former Israeli intelligence agents? I wonder why we should be concerned. So, firstly, Unit 8200 is the centerpiece of Israel's repressive and high-tech state apparatus. It is responsible for pioneering the technology that has allowed it to create both a gigantic digital dragnet to surveil, harass, and intimidate the Palestinian population, and for creating spying tools aimed at penetrating and compromising foreign governments and individuals. Unit 8200 agents use facial recognition technology to track Palestinians' every move and listen to their phone conversations. The information they glean being used as material for blackmail. One Unit 8200 whistleblower revealed that as part of their training, they were assigned to memorize different Arabic words for gay so that they could listen out for them in conversations. Yeah. LGBTQ friendly Israel, though, Colin. You
right.
know?
Well, they're going to make the argument. Well, with that, they're going to make the argument. Well, the Arab world shouldn't be that suppressive. But I'm like, but you're not protecting them. If anything, you're doxing them.
Yes. On
so
purpose.
How much better are you?
Right. So the unit is also behind Project Lavender. We've talked about. Go look up our stories on that. A giant AI-generated kill list of tens of thousands of Gazans that the Israeli military uses to target the stripped civilian population. Earlier this year, it planned and carried out an attack on Lebanon, exploding thousands of pagers at the same time, injuring thousands of civilians. The event was widely described, even by former director of the CIA, Leon Panetta, as an act of terrorism. Former Unit 8200 agents, working hand in hand with the Israeli National Security State, have gone on to create some of the world's most notorious malware and hacking products. Case in point is the Pegasus software used to spy on more than 50,000 journalists, politicians, diplomats, business leaders, and human rights defenders. This included heads of state such as President Emmanuel Macron, President Minister Imran Khan, and President Bahrain Saleh of Iraq. So, yeah. Known purchasers of Pegasus include the Central Intelligence Agency and the government of Saudi Arabia, who used Pegasus to spy on Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi before he was assassinated by Saudi agents in Turkey. All sales of Pegasus had to be approved to the Israeli government, who reportedly had access to the data Pegasus foreign customers were accruing. Former agents of Unit 8200 doubtlessly possess highly desirable tech skills and knowledge. However, given the organization's past and present actions, it is highly questionable that global tech companies hire them, especially in roles that give them access to sensitive user data or decision-making power over the content on their platforms. It seems almost on purpose that they do that, huh? So, again, go find this. We've talked about this. Run by State Department officials, so it's pretty much ran by spooks of multiple countries, so, look out for that. But since the October 7th attack, senior U.S. politicians have been demanding a complete government ban on TikTok, citing what Missouri Senator Josh Hawley described as ubiquity of anti-Israel content. The Chinese Communist Party is doing this on purpose, added his Nebraska colleague, Pick Ricketts. They are pushing this racist agenda with the intention of undermining our democratic values. This is not the first time the app has faced total deletion in the US. In 2020, Washington branded it a Chinese Trojan horse and threatened to close it down to appease the government. TikTok launched Project Texas, a $1.5 million initiative to move the company's data to Austin, and partnered with Oracle, a corporation with exceptionally close ties to the CIA. So, any questions for where their allegiances lie? A lesser-known aspect of Project Texas, however, was the company's hiring of scores of U.S. national security state officials, which gave Washington significant control over the platform's direction. For example, Jade Nestor, TikTok's director of data public policy for Europe, was a top official in Washington, previously serving as the State Department's director of internet public policy. So, again, Jade Nestor, senior advisor for internet policy, telecommunications policy specialist, right? All for the U.S. Department of Commerce. GSMA, lots of fun stuff. IBM, Promontory Financial Group. So, lots of fun revolving door places. Mariola Janik, meanwhile, was a senior diplomat in the State Department, a former high official in the Department of Homeland Security, before being hired in 2022 to become TikTok's Global Trust and Safety Operations Program Manager. So, again, diplomat in public affairs, right? The Integrity Institute. I'm sure that's a lovely little brain trust. But again, Global Trust and Safety Operations, Asylum Officer for Homeland Security, right? And the Department of State, Public Affairs, all that stuff. So, Fun. Bo Peterson, one of a host of ex-CIA officials now working at TikTok. Until 2020, Patterson was a targeting analyst with the agency. TikTok hired him to identify extremist content on the platform, and he is now a data security manager for the company. So, yeah. Fun stuff, right?
Yep.
The company's product policy manager, Greg Anderson, has even more intriguing past. According to his LinkedIn profile, Anderson went from working on psychological operations, also known as PSYOPs, literally PSYOPs. Okay, that's what PSYOPs mean. Okay, at NATO, to being a policy specialist at X, formerly known as Twitter. It's Twitter. It will always be Twitter. And then onto TikTok 2 years later. Shortly after, Mint Press first publicized this fact in a previous investigation in this series entitled The NATO to TikTok Pipeline. Why is TikTok employing so many national security agents? Anderson deleted all references to the military alliance from his social media profiles. Sounds like someone was trying to cover up some tracks there. I'm just saying. I mean, that looks nice on your resume, no? You want to leave that in, right? Is it a little wonder why Washington, Tel Aviv, or any other government would wish to control TikTok? The app has grown rapidly and now boasts over 1 billion global users, including around 170 million in the US. The platform is particularly probably with youths. It is a primary source of news and information for Generation Z, who spend nearly 1 hour per day on average using it. While there is no doubt that pro-Palestinian content is more popular than pro-Israel videos, it appears that U.S. politicians reflexively consider this to be down to algorithmic bias, and not simply a representation of global sentiment. The United Nations continues to vote overwhelmingly to condemn Israel's attack on its neighbors, and global polls show the country's image has dropped precipitously in the past 12 months. Like rain from the sky. So, yeah. Yet it would be a mistake to assume that TikTok is biased in favor of pro-Palestinian voices. Last year, Mint Press had its account suspended without warning and has not been reinstated. Popular Middle East news website Mondo Weiss was also suspended, and other figures calling for Palestinian liberation have claimed their content is being suppressed. I know, Hotspot got pulled, right? As well.
Yes.
So, a bunch of people pulled from the old TikToks. TikTok has also taken steps to align itself with U.S. government policy, deleting more than 32,000 Russian accounts and removing at least 41,000 videos it claims were spreading misinformation about the war in Ukraine. This includes Russia's state-owned media such as RT and Sputnik, which it removed in September. Can we also remove all other state-owned media? That would be nice.
Ours.
Right. Exactly. It's just, they launder that money before it gets there. Other state enemies of Washington are also suppressed. The platform attaches state-controlled media warning labels to China's CGTN and Iran's Press TV. It does not, however, do the same to Britain's BBC, Canada CBC, or TRT World of Turkey.
Or MSNBC, or CNN, or...
Yes. Yep. New York Times, pick one. Throw the dart at the wall of shit journalism and see which one you want to choose. The hiring of individuals who openly former agents of Israel, most notorious spying agency, one implicated in gigantic data gathering and blackmail operations, is another sign that TikTok does not plan on being a haven for radical anti-imperialist politics. Who would have thunk? Decisions such as the hiring of Israeli spooks to oversee proceedings are messages to Western governments not to be alarmed. It should, however, be a cause for the concern for the rest of us. So, thoughts, Care Bear?
I mean, we knew this, so I think
Yes.
this just kind of confirms. So shout out to Alan McLeod for actually doing the reporting and the researching and actually confirming a lot what we've been saying in terms of social media. Yeah, so basically Israeli spies are basically watching us. in terms of our social media movement. So that's probably why even on our channel we're demonetized too. I'm sure
Yeah.
it's like AI, but like, you know, a lot of these people are affiliated in tech, so it would make sense. Like even for us, just to kind of keep it personal, like I'm heavily suppressed on Twitter. Our channel is highly suppressed. So yeah, so I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense. And as I said earlier, don't think that Trump is going to not like be the savior and actually kind of release everything. I think if anything, it's just going to be about the same, if not worse, under him.
Mhm.
So, will he ban TikTok? I mean, who knows? But I wouldn't call him. I wouldn't say he wouldn't if it meets his purposes. So, but I mean, I guess all is fair in being a pro-Israel, I guess.
Yep. I mean, funny how that works. Well, as you were saying, talking about these things, it's why we're demonetized. So you can go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork or scan that QR code on your screen. Or if you're in the live chat, you can put !donate. As always, links to support are in the description below. So any little bit helps. We appreciate it if you can give us some dollary dues. If you can't, we get it. Times are tough. Just do the engagement stuff, like and subscribe, share the video, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. You know, is TikTok as bad as we think? You know, otherwise, thanks for watching. All right. Over on the Rumble, there's some peoples. Wild Rose 1 said, I found a good article on Mondoweiss on Malcolm X's views on Zionism. Have to go check that out. And Ind Imperialism, gotta steam your face for 10 minutes in the shower and lots of cool mist humidifiers. Talking about our complaining of the weather, you know? So, but anyway, you see anything else?
Like a typical British man, like as I am. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised you're not just like double fisting tea at the minute, you know? It seems about that time. So
I was a little late for tea.
yes, a little bit. But anyway, Accord Lord saying we're fucked is what that segment was. Yep, kinda.
It's only gonna get worse in the next segment. Just watch. So
you know, Scroogle asking they blackmail gay Palestinians. Kinda. They kind of do that. So,
yeah. Well, you've seen this. You've seen how like Zionists have been willing to dox people, even like on social media. Like, why wouldn't you think that they would do that too? So it's not beneath them to do that. So, yeah.
Wild Rose over on the Rumble. TikTok algorithm is creepily accurate. I had to leave it, dude. YouTube Shorts too. Every time I start, like, you know, and they push it everywhere now on YouTube, right? Any of these like short form video platforms just makes me feel icky, like, because I'm just the worst. I'll keep scrolling, and I eventually have to be like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? You know. And you just waste way too much time on them. Like suddenly 2 hours have gone by, you know, like what? Anyway, Scroogle says Unit 8200 is the equivalent of the U.S. National Security Agency or Britain's GCHQ and is the largest single military unit in the IDF. It is descended from early code breaking and intelligence units formed at the birth of the State of Israel in 1948. Good shout on that, Scroogle. Appreciate that.
Thank you for that.
Yep. So we should probably cover it more in depth. I know it's connected to so much, right? Like it's journalism is affected, and you know, we're gonna get to it a bit later tonight too. I know
that
Whitney
might be
Webb's talk about them a ton.
To get a hold of Alan McLeod, if we're able to pull him and see
sure
what else he knows, if anything.
Yeah.
So
Wild Rose saying AI gathering data on your pauses, etc. I have to think about that consciously, especially on the YouTube one, because it's just like, all right, this one's dumb. Got to move past it quickly, you know? Like, so, and for us dudes, all it ends up doing is sending us scantily clad dancing women for some reason. Because our brains stop on that. We go, oh, things I like, you know? Like, and that's all it turns into. So no thanks. But anyway, ready for our next one?
Just 1 second. And yes,
sir.
Sean in the chat says, Sean Miller, give me 1 hour of INN or over short form. For real, for real.
Yep. For real, for real. Indy saying thanks for the $20, Sean. Yep, appreciate it. Yep. But anyway, all right. Well,
so,
you're up.
So going off of that segment,
Right?
great segue into this one. So
How do we do that every week? We always end up doing that. It's like all our stories end up being way too connected than they could be.
Well, it's all connected in
I know.
corruption and politics.
Funny how that works.
Right. So so you might have heard some bills that are being proposed in terms of silencing critics who are anti-Israel. So we're going to go into that in this segment. So shout out to Robert Inklakash from Consortium for reporting on this. This was an article that I had in the back burner since last week, which I found then. Figure we might as well talk about it now. And again, this is more of a warning for the rest of us, especially what might be happening come New Year. So be careful. I'm just saying that just as a concerned Care Bear. So Robert reports on how U.S. Congress plans to target critics of Israel. Guess that includes us as well.
Yep.
A coalition of civil rights groups is sounding the alarm over 3 proposed bills that, they argue, represent an audacious attempt to stifle dissent and curb free expression in the United States. The legislation, H.R. 6408, H.R. 9495, and S. 4136, claims to combat terrorism by targeting the tax-exempt status of nonprofits deemed to be in violation. But critics insist the true aim is more insidious, to suppress organizations that are critical of Israel. Championed by lawmakers with deep ties to AIPAC, the bills, if passed, could pave the way for an unprecedented crackdown on dissent under the guise of national security. While federal laws already prohibit supporting proscribed terrorist organizations, these bills would expand the government's reach over nonprofits under the appearance of countering such threats. H.R. 6408 and H.R. 9495 have already passed the House of Representatives, with S. 4136 poised to add further amendments to the legislative effort. Critics have dubbed H.R. 9495 the nonprofit killer bill, and it's drawing sharp condemnation from groups like the ACLU, and the Council of American Islamic Relations, or CARE.
Yeah.
In a letter signed by over 300 nonprofits, the ACLU called on Congress to reject the legislation, warning of its potential to erode constitutional rights and empower government overreach. CARE echoes these concerns in a press release, labeling the bills undemocratic and accusing them of undermining fundamental freedoms. With growing opposition, the fate of these controversial bills may hinge on the ability of civil rights advocates to mobilize the public and legislative resistance. Critics argued that the legislative push embodied by H.R. 9495 and H.R. 6408 hand unprecedented authority to the U.S. Treasury Secretary, enabling them to unilaterally revoke the tax-exempt status of nonprofit organizations accused of, quote-unquote, supporting terrorism.
And that's direct attack on, like, a lot of the journalism independent,
right?
For sure. because they're all, 501c3s, nonprofits, just to try to keep the lights on.
So this would include, I guess, like Consortium News, Gray Zone, like all the media that we most of the media that we read and feature would be, screwed under this. So, so this is why you support independent media, y'all. So, CARE warns that this could be done using classified evidence without formal charges or sufficient opportunity for organizations to defend themselves.
So without due process, pretty much.
Without due process, yeah.
Yeah.
Despite this criticism, both bills have cleared Congress, which H.R. 6408, billed by its supporters as a response to the October 7th Hamas-led attack on Israel, received less attention, but is facing similar backlash. The Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee contends the legislation creates virtually no limitations or accountability under Treasury Secretary's discretion, allowing decisions based on viewpoints that differ on those of the administration in power. Jonathan Schwenzer, Vice President of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a neoconservative Washington-based think tank, has claimed that pro-Palestinian student protesters take guidance and support from American nonprofit organizations.
Right. God forbid.
Schnatzer claims that one such charity, American Muslims in Palestine, carries a striking resemblance to Hamas charities that were dismantled here more than a decade ago. Schwanzer was likely referring to the Holy Land Foundation, who were subjected to a highly politicized trial that led to their designation as a terrorist organization in the post-9/11 era. Republican Congressman David Kushoff, the sponsor of H.R. 6408, has received nearly $230,000 from pro-Israel lobby groups. A vocal advocate for
the above board money.
Right. A vocal advocate for legislating away anti-Semitism, Kushoff's initiatives have drawn condemnation from sides in criticism of Israel on college campuses. After the bill's passage, Kushoff claims recent reports indicate here are U.S.-based nonprofits suspected of providing support and funding to terrorist groups.
I find it funny that this is all like Republican senators too, who would normally be like, if this was any other minority group trying to get protections in any way, they'd be like, nah, fuck you.
Like, fuck off.
Right. So
but
you're just trying to divide us. So, okay.
Senators John Cornyn and Angus King, beneficiaries of significant donations from pro-Israel donors, case in point, introduced S4136, a bill that proposes suspending the tax-exempt status of organizations accused of terrorism support. Cohen has received at least $488,888. That's a random number, but from pro-Israel donors, and Senator Angus King's top donor from 2019 to 2024 was, of course, our friends AIPAC.
I do find it weird that these are like really specific numbers too. Like this one from Claudia Tenney, who has received over 178,000. Like, how does that? I mean, at least that's some zeros,
right,
on it. But like, how do we get like 88, 88, 88? Like, how does that work? That's fucking weird.
If the U.S. Treasury Department chooses to follow the advice of AIPAC, it could usher in an era of unprecedented scrutiny for any charity critical of Israel. Historically, targeting such organizations, along with universities, rights groups, and media outlets, requiring the cumbersome step of designating them as terrorist entities. The proposed legislation, however, threatens to streamline this process, turning what was once a legal labyrinth, a process of checks and balances, ensuring that American civil rights were protected, into a fast track of silence and dissent. This shift dovetails with President-elect Donald Trump's fiery rhetoric about cracking down on university campuses that allows protests against Israel to occur. The bills, crafted primarily by Republican lawmakers, seem designed to dovetail with Trump's ideological crusade, poised to gain traction under his return to the presidency. Trump's promises to take aim at institutions deemed insufficiently supportive of Israel loom large over this legislative push.
And I thought we were the party of keeping college
keep in
free.
Mind, this is right, but keep in mind, I know that Robert will probably say this.
Yes.
But this has been happening already.
Yes.
Under Democrats.
Yep.
So don't mistake. Yes, Republicans are notorious for doing this anyway, but we know this. This has been happening regardless under Biden. So
and these are also the same people who would be like the universities are teaching our kids and controlling what they think. Like, yes, and like y'all just want. That's the thing. It's like they just don't want it control. Like they want their thoughts being forced on kids. That's the only difference. Right. So
central to these concerns is Trump's nominee for Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, a hedge fund manager with a storied and at times controversial career. As George Soros' former top investor, Bessent made waves in 2014 when he reportedly threatened to resign over the Open Society Foundation's proposal to divest from companies tied to Israel. According to the Wall Street Journal, Bessent's ultimatum effectively squashed the idea. The fears surrounding this legislative shift are not entirely speculative. Recent government actions, such as the designation of the Sandouin, a Palestinian prisoner solidarity network, as a terrorist organization, have already showcased the state's willingness to stretch the bounds of such classifications. With these new bills poised to pass, critics worry that the target list will grow to encompass not just pro-Palestinian nonprofits, but also any group that dares to criticize Israel. For many, the specter of an all-encompassing crackdown looms, threatening the very foundations of free expression and dissent.
Mm-hmm.
So, next year is going to be very interesting for us in independent media.
Yep.
So,
which it's already been pretty interesting, but so.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Democrat and no, it's just going to be rhetoric, but see what they're going to say,
right?
In terms of like, because most Democrats would be for it. So, and I believe, and I have to double check, I believe AOC voted for one of these bills, actually.
It's going to be hard to be an opposition candidate when you're not one.
Right.
Huh?
Right. So she can talk all she wants about free speech. And I also believe Jamal Bowman as well also voted for one of these bills. So he was finding hot air in terms of, being pro-Palestine and all that bullshit. But in the same breath, you also vote. Like, this just kind of shows me that a lot of these politicians do not read these fucking bills.
No.
And in a way, given how many of these bills are like pages long, there's absolutely no way that many of these people are going to read through it and know the ins and outs of any of them, especially if they're like tied to other shit.
They're also purposefully vague. If you're going to throw 1,000 pages, you might as well at least make it like comprehensive and like,
right.
Nail down exactly what you're wanting. Not just open-ended to be interpreted either. That's the craziness to me. So, which I saw. Yeah. What's worse is that to fix that, solutions have been put out to make AI summaries of the bills, and that's what they read. How about just make bills that aren't 1,000 pages?
1,000 pages long.
Right. Like make them concise and understanding.
Single issue bills.
Single
issue bills. Like,
no writers, none of that shit. You can't call the fucking, free bananas for everyone act and, it's talking about fucking like beef jerky. You can't do that. So they do that shit all the time. I hate it. So anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Just
I mean, we'll obviously, you know, like given we dissent against Israel all the time,
Mhm.
we will see. I think we will see how this plays out come next year in terms of, you know, our network, and then also, as we said, other independent media sources. And I'm sure, and I'm guessing more than likely, there's going to be a push for like all of these. And actually, that might be something we need to consider. You know, like
they'll probably go
um,
after Indie Media Award honorees first, like Robert Inlakesh. You know,
right. But
like
I'm just thinking. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. You know, like we read a lot of their work here, and obviously a lot of the work this show especially is meant like how much like How Do We Miss That is a way to kind of highlight the work that of other people, lesser known journalists who may not otherwise get the recognition that they deserve, and highlight their work even in this space. But I'm guessing, as you said, that they're going to be targeted, or you know, like they will probably lose funding, you know, in order to keep their operations going. It probably might mean, I'm just thinking of like off my head, like finding ways that we can support them, like our audience, and maybe encourage our colleagues in the space to do the same, to have our audience support these organizations financially as well. Because the big thing that I'm hearing is that obviously making them tax exempt means they're going to go after their funding. Meaning, you know, you talk about Israel, we'll pull your funding. Meaning they'll work, and, you know, a lot of these journalists will not be able to continue doing their work.
Yes.
So,
yeah, attack the money, as they frequently do.
Right.
So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to actually, like, we've been trying to, this actually might be a good reason to try and get Robert on. We've been wanting to have him on for a while, but maybe in light of this article, just kind of talking about this and how he feels he might be affected. And, you know, and like what ways that we can support him as well as others in independent media, like to ensure that they're able to continue doing the work while fighting against well, protecting the right of free speech.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Robert is based in the UK, so
won't have
maybe
exactly the same kind of problems, but they've got their own crap to worry about. So,
right.
You know,
But
like they're getting arrested
all the
over there
same,
for stuff.
right?
So,
But all the same, you know,
but
it'll be
speaking of attacking the money, you know, like probably why we're demonetized. So you could scan that QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork, or find it in the description below. While, you know, Ko-fi still allows us to take it, we appreciate your dollary dues. You know, you can also like and subscribe, hit the share button if you would be so kind. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Are you worried about this kind of legislation? You should be if you're not. Let us know. But otherwise, thanks for watching. All right, before we get to that one, anything in the chats?
I think there was something. Kill Your Egregores said, Soros the Wretched is my next Dungeons and Dragons villain. A lich, perhaps? Devil cult leader? Vampire king?
Yeah, just do, what's that? Oh, God. Dungeon of Horror. I forget the specific dungeon that's super crazy with the lich at the end of it. He'll probably know more than I would. I heard Elon Musk wanted to buy Hasbro because it owned Dungeons and Dragons. For something. I don't know why he decided. I mean, I guess he's rolling too many critical fails, probably. Wants to change the rules. But, you know. Sean says Israel will be done by 2026. The government, overplayed their hand. with the help of the US and Euro, arrogance of a monster, and have lost what I fear is the final option. They do have one of those. Indy says the Stop Anti-Semitism Act has already passed the House. It's scary AF.
Yeah.
So, also mentioning Robert is now an Indie Media Award honoree. So, do go check out that
early,
stuff.
Indy, when you were.
Yeah,
you weren't here
Indy.
yet, but we did mention
You were probably
that.
sleeping on the job, laying down on the job, and or doing fatherly duties. One of the two, more likely. You know. But anyway, all right. You ready for our next one? I read these. Cool. Last one for the night. So, Colin, I've been reading too much about AI horrors, so I figured we should continue to do so because I think it's gonna be a problem. I mean, a little early, but there's definitely some question marks on how useful this stuff is gonna be. This tweet made its way into my Twitter feed. So from Just a Thought, right? It says, I have a theory that the government isn't using mass shooting events to take our guns away as much as they're conditioning us with endless narratives about shooters showing signs of violence prior to the shooting so they can manipulate us into supporting this. So this is what she posted from Wired. Nadine Call. AI can now predict crime before it happens. Researchers from the University of Chicago have demonstrated an AI that can predict crimes a week in advance and an accuracy rate of 90%. Okay? So, any thoughts so far? Because this is not, it's not going to get better.
Not yet.
Okay. So I figured we should do a little more digging, correct? That's what we do here. So I went and found the Wired article because I'm like, I wonder what else is happening there. So I found the Wired article, again, written by Nadine Cahill, probably. But they write as if springing straight from the pages of Philip K. Dick's Minority Report. I love the first sentence, Colin. We're already like, hey, you know that dystopian science fiction that you all know that got turned into a movie with Tom Cruise? Well, that's a real thing. We're doing that now. Like, that's the first sentence, pretty much. Like, it's like they already know. A team of scientists from the University of Chicago have demonstrated an AI algorithm that can predict crimes that are yet to occur with an accuracy rate of 90%. The team, led by Ishanu Chattopadhyay, I hope I got that right, Assistant Professor, Department of Medicine at the University of Chicago, and Professor James Evans, used historical crime data available in the public domain to predict future events within distinct 1,000 square foot urban areas. Colin, you hear what I hear in that?
Yeah.
1,000 square foot urban areas, particularly the urban part, I guess, is going to be focused here. I mean, okay.
And I see the cities too. I see the cities.
Yep, which is Chicago. The technology was demonstrated using data from 8 cities, including Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and Chicago. So I'm sure the legal data is super accurate there, right? Sure, it's very accurate. The parallels with Dick's story and the subsequent Tom Cruise's blockbuster are clear to see. Yeah, maybe because it's fucking what? Yeah, no, clear to see. Like, anyway, so we discover patterns in event logs and apply these patterns to calculate risk of an event in future at specific locations. It is like if you see dark clouds, why they got to be dark, first of all, you conclude that it's going to be rain soon. Just here, the patterns, again, the dark clouds, are much more subtle and harder to recognize and reason with.
Well, I know you were kind of joking.
Yes, but no, I'm not.
But no, but like, why would you? The dark clouds are much more. No, dude, I'll call it out. Like, you're racial profiling black people. That's what you're doing.
Oh, we're letting the computer racial profile. That's what we're doing. So, yeah, 1,000 square foot urban areas.
No, like you're racially profiling black people.
Yes, off data from Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Chicago, some of the most brutal police states out there. So I'm sure they only arrest, people breaking the law all the time, and they definitely aren't just located to particular square foot urban areas already, right? Like, I'm sure the data's fucking flawed. Anyway, so fears of the thought police are probably running through your head right now, but CashApp is keen to stress that the focus isn't on individuals. No, it's about an entire fucking group. We do not focus on predicting individual behavior and do not suggest that anyone be charged with a crime they didn't commit or be incarcerated for. Our model learns from and then predicts event patterns in the urban space. For example, predicting that within a 2-block radius around the intersection of 67th Street and Southwest Avenue, there is a high risk of a homicide a week from now.
You know what? They're based at University of Chicago, right? I'm going to check something. Keep going.
Okay. It does not indicate who is going to be the victim of the perpetrator, she says. Or the perpetrator. Using this capability, the team can begin to understand how complex social systems respond to different factors.
Oh, you're on mute, Reef. You
We
just went on mute.
Well, I'm back now, though, right? Why? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you got it.
Cool. So, again, using this capability, the team can begin to understand how complex social systems respond to different factors within a city. For example, increasing or decreasing crime rates within certain geographical boundaries. We found that when stressed, the law enforcement response is seemingly different in high socioeconomic status areas compared to their more disadvantaged neighboring communities. It is suggested in the paper that when crime rates spike, the higher SES neighborhoods tend to get more attention at the cost of resources drawn away from poorer neighborhoods, says CashApp.
So I was checking that address.
Yeah.
Assuming it's correct.
Yeah.
Guess where in Chicago it is based at?
What, 67th Street and Southwest Avenue?
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing it's in
Chicago.
South Side.
Got it.
Okay. Just fucking making sure we're in the South Side of Chicago. I figured. Yep. I figured when we were fucking giving exact fucking it's like, hey, y'all know where all the gangs fight? Like right there? There might be more crime there in a week. Okay.
Right.
Like, sure. Yeah, like this is just like I just seems very upfront about it too. It's like not even subtle about it. You know?
Which, in a way, I could appreciate.
Yes.
But
at least you're
and I'm like,
fuck you for being an asshole. Right. Yeah. So it is hoped that these observations can then be used by policymakers when, for example, allocating budgets or planning policing strategies. However, CashApp was also clear on the need to avoid using the system as predictive policing, as its true strength.
No, it's not predict. No, it's predictive. It's predictive. This is making me more frustrated than I think it really needs to be.
I'm reading this yesterday. I knew you were gonna get fucking fired up, dude. Like,
predictive, but even in the way it's like they're black or of color, therefore,
right.
Like, we can logically assume that they're going to need more policing.
Right.
Like, it's not a matter of predictive. You're basing this on a bias, a racial bias at that. That you feel like, I mean, why can't they do this in a white neighborhood?
Yes.
You know, like make it more equitable. Like, don't just do it in the South Side of Chicago. Put it up on the North too. Like,
well, and this whole like paragraph earlier of like this, we found that when stressed, the law enforcement response is seemingly different in high socioeconomic status areas compared to their more disadvantaged neighboring communities. It is suggested in the paper that when crime rates spike, the higher SES neighborhoods tend to get more attention. So they're saying that the police all go to the rich folks thing and not to the poor folks area.
No.
Like, right.
No.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
No.
So
I think I told you this over the summer. Like, I was getting groceries and like near my house, like I was walking there because it was a nice night, and like literally, I'm not sure what was going on, but I think it was it seemed like early 20s, black male and female, I believe, were getting arrested. Like, but there were like 6 police cars for 2 people. 6. There had to be like a dozen cops for 2 black people.
yes.
So I'm kind of like, you have nothing better to do? Like,
Colin, your people
like
are
dozen of you
extremely
all to
athletic.
arrest 2 people?
Yep. That's how it fucking works. Anyway, fucking dumb shit. Anyway, Japan is currently using AI technologies to help design citizen patrol routes through various municipalities. The approach studies historical crime rates to analyze the locations and times of various types of crime. This data is then used to inform the patrol patterns. So, like we were saying, like, that's going to be terrible fucking data.
Like, right. But be more equitable and put it in different
Here
areas.
we go. However, other attempts to use historical data have proved problematic. In 2012, the Chicago Police Department used a crime and victimization risk model that was found to rely on biased data. In addition, the model was designed around an approach where crime was depicted as emerging in certain hotspots. Before radiating outward, this approach has both supporters and detractors, says fucking Wired. Fuck you, Wired. Like, for fucking phrasing it that way. Like, just a false dichotomy. No, it's probably a lot of detractors, huh, Wired? As an open source project, Chatoptahe says that she's happy to share the technology to ensure that it achieves widespread impact. A paper covering the team's research was published in the journal Nature of Human Behavior. Okay, so Colin, I see blue link, right, about the paper. Okay,
right.
What do you think I do? I clicked the link, right?
Right.
Page not found. Fucking page not found, Colin. So, yeah, I did look up Nature and some of their other things on AI. Let's see if I can scroll up into my things for that. AI generates covertly racist decision about people based on their, like, based on their dialects. That was one of the things Nature fucking had in here. Right?
Right.
And also, China and US produce more impactful AI research when collaborating together. So,
okay.
That's 2 of the things I saw, just in case you wanted to, like, see what I could find. But I did find it funny that I fucking couldn't find what they're actually talking about. But some people on Twitter weighed in, particularly none other than one of our favorites, Miss Whitney Webb, right? Another Indie Media Award honoree. So, under the last Trump administration, then AG Bill Barr legalized pre-crime prosecutions at the DOJ. In 2019, Trump called on social media to surveil users to identify would-be mass shooters before they commit any crime. I now worry that the main AI predictive policing Palantir, with multiple ties to the incoming administration and the CIA, or an equivalent, going to be rolled out with law enforcement nationwide under the guise of addressing staff shortages and increasing efficiency.
Right.
AI is already being used to write policy reports and law enforcement management software, like the very spooky Mark 43, and is already widely used by police departments, several of which have trialed Palantir's predictive policy functionality. These AIs are not 90% accurate. Remember that was the thing, right? So absolutely less. But even if you believe those metrics, how do the erroneously targeted 10% explain their innocence for a crime that hasn't ever happened? Don't fall for the convenience and efficiency sales pitches. AI pre-crime is the end of liberty. So, any questions so far?
No, and actually that kind of makes a whole lot of sense in terms of trying to solve the cop problem, in terms of like in a lot of cities, like I could say in DC, you know, like there were at a shortage. So like, you know, they were like, our mayor was giving perks to cops that she wouldn't give to anybody else, like teachers, who I argue would need it just as much, if not more.
As not more.
In order to enroll more police. Like, I mean, they're already like getting more money generally. And now they're going to have AI to essentially do the for them to kind of fill in the gaps. And of course, it's going to be used primarily in the low income neighborhood, where people have been making the argument for years that the problem isn't police in terms of, you know, needing more to solve crime. The issue is poverty. Like, deal with the economics of the problem, and you'll have better results, which no one wants to talk about.
No. How dare you make sense? How dare you? So Whitney posted this article, which I've linked down in the doobly-doo. So go read the full thing. If I did, we'd be here for 40 minutes. So thank me later. I did bring a bit of it. But again, how the CIA, Mossad, and the Epstein network are exploiting mass shootings to create an Orwellian nightmare. Remember we talked earlier in this night about that little unit right there?
Right.
So remember how everything's fucking connected? Remember that?
Right.
So in early August, and again, she's writing this when? September 2019, I think. Yes, 2019. So in early August, I would assume, of 2019, in the wake of the shooting at an El Paso Walmart, President Trump called on big tech companies to collaborate with the Justice Department in the creation of software that stops mass murders before they start. And remember, we talked about last week how this administration has been like pushing for the, you know, deep state to be more involved with a lot of these technologies too. No?
Well, yeah, they're funding. They've funded the police more, so that money is surely going to go part of this. So yes.
So
also, when was this article written? What year?
2019.
Okay.
Yep. So, in the creation of software that stops mass murderers before they start, by detecting potential mass shooters before they can act. Through Trump's ideas, we're short on specifics. There is now a new proposal that create a new government agency that will use data gathered from civilian electronic devices to identify neurobehavioral warning signs, thereby flagging potential shooters for increased surveillance and potential detention. This new agency, as proposed by the foundation led by former NBC Universal President and Vice Chairman General Electric Robert Wright, would be known as the Health Advanced Research Project Agency, also known as HARPA, and would be modeled after the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, aka DARPA. Per the proposal recently detailed by the WAPO, the flagship program of HARPA would be Safe Home, stopping abhorrent fatal events for helping overcome mental extremes. They got to get better writers over here, dog. They need help. Use that AI for the writing. It does better. Which would use breakthrough technologies with high specificity and sensitivity for early diagnosis of neuropsychiatric violence, specifically advanced analytical tools based on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Sound familiar? Yep. Here's the kicker, Colin. The program would cost an estimated $60 million over 4 years and would use data from Apple Watches, Fitbits, Amazon Echo, and Google Home, and other consumer electronic devices, as well as information provided by healthcare providers to identify who may be a threat.
So I need to get rid of my Apple Watch and my Google.
Everyone needs to get rid of everything. You're not the only one. So, like, the WAPO reported that Trump has reacted very positively to the proposal and that he was sold on the concept. The Post also noted that Wright sees the president's daughter, Ivanka, as the most effective champion of the proposal and has previously briefed her on HARPA himself. Ivanka has previously been cited as a driving force behind some of her father's policy decisions, including his decision to bomb Syria after an alleged chemical weapons attack in 2017. So, we know who would want that. Anyway, Whitney continues with Liz Fedd, president of the Susan Wright Foundation, which is led by Robert Wright, and created the proposal for HARPA and Safe Home, told the Post that the proposal emulated DARPA because DARPA is a brilliant model that works. They have developed the most transformational capabilities in the world for national security. We're not leveraging the tools and technologies available to us to improve and save lives and murder more people. Fed further asserted that DARPA's technologies approach had yet to be applied in the field of healthcare. So they're going to use it for, like, trying to find crazy people. That's what they're going to use. So, yeah, it seems fine. For anyone familiar with DARPA, such claims should immediately sound loud alarm bells, since DARPA is already developing its own solution to mental health issues in the form of a brain-machine interface, which we've talked about on the show before. As part of its N3 program, that program, according to reports, involves non-invasive and minutely invasive neural interfaces to both read and write into the brain, help distance soldiers from the emotional guilt of warfare by clouding their perception, and to program artificial memories of fear, desire, and experiences directly into the brain. Through N3 is intended to improve the prowess of American soldiers, it is also said to be used as a means of pursuing DARPA's system-based neurotechnology for emerging therapies project, which aims to develop a tiny implanted chip in the skull to treat psychiatric disorders such as anxiety, PTSD, and major depression. So, brain chips. Elon super loves those. Loves the brain chips. So, yeah, new boss, same as the old boss. Funny how that works. Thoughts, Care Bear, before we head out?
I mean, we're fucked.
Yes, we fucking are, for sure.
I mean,
Jesus
but
Christ.
again, I said it in the last segment, it's not like
we're fucked.
It's not like Democrats have done anything to kind of prevent any of this. If anything, they've been Republicans are doing is that they're wrapping up what they have been doing the last 4
Yeah, they're gonna get it done. That's what it sounds
Right.
like to me. Like,
Right. You know, so yeah, it's just bad all around. But the idea of using justify racial profiling, I think, is just ridiculous. And
yes.
And the sad thing is, I know there are going to be people even in DC that are going to be for it.
Cheering this. Yeah,
So-
they're like, oh yeah, this is great. Great idea. Fucking idiots.
So, yeah.
So-
So yeah, needless to say, I'm not happy, but to be
Understatement?
expected.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, talking about these things, why we're demonetized, scan that QR code on your screen, go to the little link in the description below while you still can. We appreciate the financial support, but if you can't, like and subscribe, hit the share button, send this to your friends, scare them, make them not be able to sleep at night. Leave a comment. Let us know how bad you think this is gonna get. Otherwise, thanks for watching. All right, Care Bear. What do we got in the chats? Wild Rose over on the Rumble. This makes me sick to my stomach, though, based on intense surveillance. So, yeah. Should be fine. Should be fine. Like, did you ever read any of the Philip K. Dick stuff?
No.
Very good sci-fi writer. I get a lot of his books confused with Heinlein a lot. So if I say a Heinlein, like, again, Minority Report, I think Android Dreams of Electric Sleep, which is like, you would know that as Blade Runner. I think that's Philip K. Dick too.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat.
Kill Your Ignorors said it's AI racial profiling. Yep. Exactly what I said.
Yeah. Vicky Adams, predictive policy, woozy face.
Right. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to title this segment that.
Woozy face,
AI
predictive
racial
policy.
profiling. Yeah.
Oh my
that's what
God.
I'm going to subtitle that segment. See what
AI
YouTube does
predictive
with that.
policing. Yeah, gonna be great.
I think.
Yeah, it's fucking awful.
One of our mods, Global Solidarity, said if pre-crime is possible, then a post-crime could be created.
What does that even mean? What does it all mean, man? Aren't all crimes post-crime? Sean, you of all people should know that we can only live in the present. That is why we call it a gift. Like, yeah, KYE says yes, it is. Total Recall, also Philip K. Dick. So like all the Sheep Look Up, all these like Weyland-Yutani, do you know about them? The like evil corporation from like Blade Runner and Alien, right? Weyland-Yutani, right? They're the ones who send the androids to find the aliens. The Man in the High Castle, also Philip K. Dick, another good one. Really great work from that guy. So yeah, Chris H., the AI psychological detection is equally as scary. They could misdiagnose people potentially on purpose, get people locked away in mental wards and drugged like Sophie Falcone in the Penguin Show. Yeah, dude, like it's like find all the dystopian AI like science fiction books. Like they all were like, yeah, this is a bad idea. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be real bad. So yeah, I mean, and it's all based off like all that stuff was based off reality just turned up a little bit, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, it's not going to be good. Rampant capitalism is not going to do well with that. So, ugh. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Well,
I think we're good for today.
I didn't know Total Recall was also Philip K. Dick. It's a good movie too. The older one with Arnie. Come on. But anyway, what do we got coming up this week?
So just a quick reminder, all these times are Eastern Standard
Subject
Time.
to change.
Subject to change. So tomorrow we have AM Wake Up at 10 a.m.
Over on the Twitters.
Tomorrow, well, actually, we have to check. I think Snow Himbo's computer died, so he might not go live. But if he does, we'll let you know on Twitter. But that would be at 9. Independent Review. So Independent Review are friends of ours. They highlight clips, from various shows. They usually feature ours quite a bit. But that will be at 10 a.m.
Over on the Twitters.
In the afternoon at 7 p.m. And then a replay of American Tradition, where I was featured to talk about, given that yesterday was Giving Tuesday, kind of focusing on the nonprofit that I'm a part of in DC. Oh, and thank you to the guys who did give. I'll say this. We are like $50 right now shy of our goal, that we actually increased our goal. We were supposed to raise 12. No, we were supposed to raise 10. We're about $50 short. So we increased it to 12. So if you would like to give, you can continue giving through the end of the year. It's just so thank you guys who did give to us. We really appreciate that. We're going to need that money for future activism as far as education coming up. So that would be appreciated. Pro Wrestling Talk is on Sunday?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Oh, it got moved.
7 p.m.
Okay. Followed by How Do We Miss That at 10, followed by Boats sometime after midnight.
Yes, sir. I think we'll be on Rumble only for that this week, so tune in for that.
AM Wake Up, basically
every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on Twitter. So we're helping Steve out with that. So seeing as how
and then
no one would want to pay for Blue Check to stream, and I'm willing to share my wealth and risk. So, yay.
No American Tradition next week. That's Jesse's off week.
Yep.
And we'll be back here next Wednesday. Next Wednesday night.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah. All right, kids. I think that's our show for this evening. So remember, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Bye, have a great time.